All right, so you're getting ready for a Textile Chemical Quality Technician interview. That's fantastic. We've got a bunch of RoleCatcher resources to help you totally crush it.
It's really a field where science and style meet.
Exactly. We're going to be diving into some awesome sample interview questions, sprinkling some career insights from RoleCatcher, and even show you how their AI can give you a serious edge.
We want you to feel super prepped and confident walking into that interview room.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right in. A common question RoleCatcher highlights is, can you explain the basic properties of textile chemicals? How would you tackle this one?
First off, remember that textile chemicals are really the backbone of the industry. They're literally in everything from dyeing fabrics to giving them that super soft feel, but they need to be handled and used correctly.
Right.
And that's where you come in as the textile chemical quality technician.
Makes sense. So how do I connect that to the question about the properties?
Well, think about solubility, reactivity, and toxicity. Explain how understanding these properties is like mission critical for a textile chemical quality technician. For example, you could say something like, knowing a dye's solubility helps me determine how evenly it will distribute on a fabric, which affects the final color and how consistent it looks.
So I'm showing them I get the practical side of these
Yeah,
properties.
exactly. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can really help you stand out. It analyzes tons of job descriptions and successful interview responses to tailor your answers to the specific role you're going for.
Whoa, that's really cool. Okay, next question. How do you ensure the quality of textile chemicals before use? What are the absolute must-haves to mention here?
This question is all about showing off your quality control process. So think step by step. What would you actually do in the lab? You can mention things like, before I use any chemical, I would verify its identity and purity. I would also check the supplier's documentation and ensure proper storage to prevent any degradation.
So it's like I'm showing them I'm super meticulous and I follow procedures like it's nobody's business.
Exactly. You're demonstrating that you understand the importance of maintaining the integrity of those chemicals. All right, let's spice things up with a scenario. RoleCatcher suggests being ready for curveballs like, imagine a batch of fabric has a weird discoloration. How would you approach troubleshooting this?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. These are the fun ones because this is where your problem-solving skills really shine through. It's like you're a detective, right? Start by gathering all the information you can. What kind of discoloration is it? Is it everywhere or in specific spots?
Right.
Then think about the possible causes. Could it be the dye, other chemicals used in the process, the water quality, or even the equipment?
Okay, so I need to show them I have a systematic way of tackling those problems.
Exactly. And don't forget to emphasize collaboration. You might say something like, I'd work closely with the dyeing team to understand what happened, consult with the lab to analyze the fabric, and maybe even involve the chemical supplier to rule out any issues on their end.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work, right?
100%. Now, this is a good time to touch on a key career insight from RoleCatcher. Collaboration skills are super valuable in this field. You're constantly interacting with all these different teams, from designers to manufacturers.
Okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind. So what about a question like, how do you maintain accurate records of textile chemicals and their usage? It seems kind of basic.
Don't underestimate it. Accurate record keeping is super important for safety, traceability, and making sure you're following all those regulations. You want to show them you're organized and detail-oriented.
Okay, so what would be a good answer to that one?
You could say something like, I'm comfortable using lab software to keep track of all the details from batch numbers to test results. I also make sure all physical records are labeled correctly and easy to find. Think about showcasing your knowledge of systems like LIMS. That's laboratory information management systems that can really impress them.
Got it. Now let's talk about a question that digs into the more technical stuff. Can you explain the process of evaluating the performance of textile chemicals? How do I make sure I don't get lost in all those details?
I would say focus on showing them you understand the why behind the what. So you could say something like this. The evaluation really depends on the specific chemical and what it's being used for. For dyes, I would check how well the color holds up to washing, rubbing, and light exposure. For finishing agents, I would look at things like water repellency or wrinkle resistance. And we do all this using standard industry tests.
So I'm proving I know the key tests, A and D, why they're important.
Exactly. And if you happen to have any experience with specific tests or equipment, definitely mention that. It really adds weight to your answer.
Awesome. All right, next up, can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot a problem with textile chemicals? This feels like my chance to tell a story.
Yes. This is where you bring your experience to life. Remember the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. Briefly describe the problem you faced, what you did to solve it, and what the outcome was. Make it a nice, concise, and engaging story.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Now, safety is a big deal in any lab, right?
Yeah.
How do I nail a question like, how do you ensure compliance with safety regulations when working with textile chemicals?
This is your moment to show them how committed you are to safety. So mention specific regulations that you adhere to, like OSHA guidelines or the Globally Harmonized System, GHS. But don't just name drop those things. Explain how you actually apply them in your day-to-day work.
So I could say something like, I always wear the right protective gear like gloves and a lab coat when handling chemicals. I'm also trained in safe storage and disposal procedures, and I always follow the safety data sheets provided by suppliers.
Yes, perfect. You're showing them that you take safety seriously and you understand the importance of following all those protocols. It also shows them, those key industry standards, which is always a big plus.
Awesome. I'm feeling more confident already. What's next?
Let's shift gears and talk about teamwork. A common question is, can you give an example of a project where you had to collaborate with other departments? How would you approach this one?
This is making me think. I guess I would choose a project that shows I can work well with others and communicate clearly.
Yes. Think about a time when you worked with colleagues from different departments, like maybe on a new product development project or a quality improvement initiative. Explain what your role was and how you contributed to the team's success.
So, for example, I could talk about a time I worked with the design team to understand what they needed for a new fabric, and then I collaborated with the production team to test different dyeing options.
Exactly. That paints a really clear picture of your ability to work across different teams and contribute to a shared goal. And it also reinforces that collaborative spirit that's so important for this role.
Absolutely. This is all super helpful. Before we move on, can you just remind me how RoleCatcher's AI can help me prep?
Sure. RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze the specific job description you're targeting and then suggest tailored responses for each question. It can even give you feedback on your practice answers to help you refine your delivery and the content.
That's amazing. I'm definitely going to check that out. Okay, what else do we have in store for me in this interview prep?
Well, let's dive into a question that really assesses your commitment to continuous learning. Interviewers often ask, how do you stay up to date with developments in the textile chemical industry? What would you say to that?
Well, I'd want to show them I'm proactive and I'm always trying to learn new things. I could mention some specific resources that I use, like industry publications, professional organizations, or conferences.
Yeah, that's a great start. You could also mention specific organizations like AATCC, which is the American Association of Textile Chemists and Colorists. Being a member and going to their conferences and webinars really shows a real commitment to staying at the forefront of the field. You could even mention that you follow industry experts on LinkedIn or read relevant articles to stay up to date on new technologies and trends.
So it's not just about what I know now, but it's also about my willingness to keep learning and growing.
Exactly. That's a super valuable quality in any field, but especially one that's constantly evolving like textile chemistry.
For sure. All right, one last question before we move on to the next part. Let's say the interviewer asks, can you give an example of a time when you had to lead a team of textile chemical quality technicians? What if I haven't had a formal leadership role yet?
Oh, that's okay. Even if you haven't had a formal title, you've probably had opportunities to show those leadership qualities. Think about a time when you took initiative on a project, mentored a colleague, or helped guide a team toward a successful outcome.
Okay. Maybe a time when I led a quality improvement initiative or trained a new technician on lab procedures.
Yeah, those are perfect examples. Focus on the situation, the actions you took, and what those positive results you achieved were. Highlight your ability to motivate others, delegate tasks effectively, and achieve goals as a team.
Okay, that's great advice. I feel much more prepared to tackle that question now.
Remember, even in situations where you weren't officially the leader, you can still showcase those leadership skills.
This has been so incredibly helpful. I feel like I have a way better understanding of how to approach these interview questions.
I'm glad to hear that.
What's coming up in part 2?
Well, we'll be diving into even more challenging questions, focusing on technical expertise, problem solving, and your understanding of the industry as a whole. And of course, we'll keep weaving in those valuable career insights from RoleCatcher.
I'm ready for it. Let's keep this momentum going.
Let's do it. Welcome back to our Textile Chemical Quality Technician interview prep. Let's just keep this momentum going and dive into some more questions that might pop up during your interview.
Yeah, I'm ready for the challenge.
Okay, great. Imagine the interviewer throws you this curveball. Can you explain the different types of textile chemicals used in coloration and finishing processes? How would you handle that one?
That does sound a bit tricky. I think I might freeze up a little.
No worries, that's why we're here. The key is to show them you have a broad understanding of those textile chemicals, so you can start by categorizing them into groups. Like dyes, pigments, auxiliaries, and finishing agents.
Okay.
And you don't want to get too bogged down in all the technical jargon.
So I shouldn't, list out every single type of dye that I know.
Exactly. Instead, pick one type, like maybe reactive dyes, and just briefly explain their use and why they work well for certain fabrics. Then you can mention something like wetting agents or fixing agents and highlight how they can improve the quality of dyeing.
Got it. So it's about showing them the big picture and how all the pieces fit together.
You got it. Now let's get a little bit more technical with the question like, how would you test the color fastness of a dyed fabric?
Oh, okay. This is where I get to show off my lab skills.
Yes, exactly. Just describe the process in a clear, concise way. You might say something like, color fastness testing involves exposing a fabric sample to different conditions like washing, rubbing, or light. And then we evaluate any color changes using those standardized tests from organizations like AATCC or ISO.
And could I maybe even mention specific equipment I've used for these tests, like a launderometer or a xenon arc lamp?
Yes, definitely. That really shows that you're familiar with those industry standard equipment and procedures, which adds a lot of credibility to your answer.
Perfect. Okay, bring on the next challenge.
All right, here's one that really tests your problem-solving skills. You receive a customer complaint about excessive pilling on a finished fabric. How would you investigate this issue?
Ooh, okay, now I feel like a textile detective.
Think of it that way. First, you gather as much information as you can. What kind of fabric is it? What's the composition? What finishing treatments were used? And then you'd want to examine the pilling under a microscope to see how bad it is.
Right, and then I have to figure out what caused it.
Exactly. So think about things like the fiber type, the yarn structure, how the fabric was made, and of course those chemicals used during finishing. Was the fabric properly heat set? Were the correct softening agents used? And this is where collaboration comes in again. You might want to loop in the production and quality control teams to help you gather information and brainstorm solutions.
Right, so it's not just about me finding the answer on my own, but knowing who to work with to get that whole picture.
You got it. Now let's shift gears to a topic that's becoming increasingly important in the textile industry, and that's sustainability. You might get a question like, what are some eco-friendly alternatives to traditional textile chemicals? This is your chance to show them your forward thinking and that you care about the environmental impact of your work.
For sure. I definitely want to show off my knowledge of sustainable practices. What are some good examples that I could mention?
Well, you could talk about those natural dyes that are derived from plants, or even insects or bio-based auxiliaries that are made from renewable resources. Even low-impact finishing agents that use less water and energy. It's all about showing them you understand this push toward more eco-friendly solutions in the textile industry.
Okay, are there any industry certifications that I could mention?
Absolutely. Knowing about certifications like GOT-OTS or OECO-TEX shows you're aware of those standards and the best practices for sustainable textiles. It can really make you stand out from other candidates.
Okay, got it. Let's go back to quality control with a question like, what are the critical control points in the textile chemical quality control process?
Right.
What are some key things that they're looking for in my answer?
They want to see that you really understand the steps involved in ensuring quality from start to finish. So you could mention things like incoming inspection of raw materials, and that includes checking those textile chemicals for purity, and if they comply with specifications.
Right.
Then you have that in-process monitoring during dyeing and finishing. That means checking dye bath concentrations, temperature profiles, and the pH levels. And of course, you have final inspection of the finished fabric to make sure the color fastness and the appearance, just the overall quality is good.
So I'm basically walking them through the entire process and highlighting those checkpoints where quality is crucial.
Exactly. It shows you've got that strong grasp of the overall quality management process.
Okay, cool. I feel like I'm getting the hang of this. What else do I need to be ready for?
Well, sometimes interviewers like to throw in some questions to see how you handle pressure. So be prepared for something like, describe a time when you faced a challenging situation in the lab and how you handled it.
Ooh, I definitely have a few stories about that. But how do I make sure my answer showcases my skills and doesn't just sound like I'm complaining?
That's a great question. Think about a time maybe when a test result was totally unexpected, or maybe an instrument malfunctioned. Focus on how you identified that problem, how you gathered information, and what steps you took to resolve it, whether that was independently or maybe asking for help.
Okay.
The key is to show them that you can stay calm under pressure and you can troubleshoot effectively and learn from those experiences.
Right, that makes sense. I can definitely highlight my problem-solving skills and my ability to adapt to those unexpected situations.
Exactly. And remember, this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can really help you. You can actually practice answering these types of behavioral questions and get feedback on your responses. The AI can even help you identify areas where you can strengthen your answer and make sure you're highlighting the right skills.
Oh, wow, that's really reassuring.
Okay.
Okay, what's next on the agenda?
Let's talk about your career goals. A common question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years within the textile industry?
Okay, so this is where I get to talk about my aspirations and show them that I'm ambitious, right?
Yes. Be honest and specific about your goals. Do you see yourself specializing in a particular area of textile chemistry, like maybe dye development or sustainable textile processing? Or perhaps you're interested in moving into more of a supervisory or a management role?
Yeah, I could definitely see myself pursuing a leadership position somewhere down the line, but I also want to keep learning and expanding my technical expertise.
Yeah, it's great to highlight both your short-term and long-term goals, and don't be afraid to mention those specific skills or knowledge that you'd like to gain to achieve those career aspirations. It shows that you're proactive and committed to your professional development.
Okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind. What other types of questions should I be prepared for?
Just be ready for questions that kind of dig deeper into your technical knowledge. For example, they might ask you to explain the difference between a dye and a pigment or describe the various methods of textile printing. These questions allow you to really showcase your understanding of those core textile chemistry concepts.
Okay, I'll make sure to brush up on those topics. Any other advice before we move on to the final part of our prep?
Just remember to be yourself, show enthusiasm, and let your passion for textile chemistry shine through. And don't forget to use those RoleCatcher resources to fine-tune your answers and practice your delivery.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for all the great tips. I'm feeling a lot more confident about this interview now. What's in store for us in part 3?
Well, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final words of wisdom, touch on how to ask insightful questions, and leave you with some thought-provoking ideas to consider as you embark on your career as a textile chemical quality technician.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our Textile Chemical Quality Technician interview. Deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Everything from basic properties of chemicals to troubleshooting some pretty tough scenarios, and now it's time to polish those interview skills and really make sure you leave a great impression.
Absolutely, I'm ready.
Okay, fantastic. Let's start with a question that shows how committed you are to staying ahead of the curve in the textile industry. Something like, how do you stay updated with the latest developments in textile testing methods and standards?
So this is my chance to show off how much I love learning, right?
Yes, exactly. You can mention attending those industry conferences and workshops, and of course, being an active member in organizations like ATCC
Right?
shows that you're serious about professional development. And don't forget online resources. Think about things like industry journals and webinars.
Okay, so it's a mix of actively looking for new knowledge and just staying connected with the industry.
Exactly. The textile world is constantly changing, so showing that you're aware of the latest trends and technologies is key.
Okay, what about a question like, what is your experience with ISO 9001 or other quality management standards in the textile industry? What if I haven't actually worked in a formally certified environment yet?
That's okay. Even without that direct experience, you can still highlight your understanding of quality management principles. So, talk about concepts like document control and process mapping, corrective actions, and continuous improvement.
Okay.
And really emphasize how these things contribute to making sure the product quality is consistent and that the customers are happy.
So I can still show off my knowledge of quality management even if I haven't worked in a specific certified system.
Absolutely. It's all about showing them you understand the importance of quality in every part of the job.
Okay, now for a question that lets my passion shine through. What are some of the current trends or innovations in textile chemistry that excite you? That's an easy one for me.
Yes, let the enthusiasm take over. You can talk about those advancements in sustainable textile processing, functional finishes, or even smart textiles. Imagine, fabrics that change color with temperature or release fragrances.
That's like the future of fashion.
Exactly. Share your excitement about all these innovations and how you would want to contribute to such an exciting field. Maybe you're really interested in research and development or finding new ways to make textile production more environmentally friendly. Let them see that passion.
Okay, I'm ready to impress them with my knowledge and enthusiasm. What else do I need to know?
Don't forget, the interview is a two-way street, so at the end, you'll probably have a chance to ask questions. This is a great opportunity for you to gather information and show them that you're engaged and curious. Just have a couple of thoughtful questions prepared beforehand.
Okay, like what?
Well, you could ask about the company's commitment to sustainability or their approach to innovation, or even ask about some specific projects that you'd be working on. Asking these questions shows that you've done your homework and you're genuinely interested in the role and the company.
Oh, that's a great tip. I'll definitely have a few questions ready.
Now for our final question, let's focus on you. What are your key skills and qualities that make you a strong candidate for this textile chemical quality technician position? This is where you really get to highlight what sets you apart from everyone else.
Okay, time to bring out my A game.
Yes. Think about all those skills we've talked about, like analytical thinking, problem solving, attention to detail, communication, teamwork, and that commitment to continuous learning. Just tailor your response to the specific job description and the company's culture.
Right, so if they really emphasize innovation, I should highlight my interest in new technologies and that willingness to learn new things.
Exactly. It's all about showing them that you are the perfect fit for their team.
This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel so much more confident about going into this interview now.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. And remember, RoleCatcher has your back. Use their AI-powered platform to fine-tune those answers and practice your delivery. And most importantly, just be yourself. Show your enthusiasm and let that passion for textile chemistry really shine through.
I will thank you so much for all the great guidance. I feel like I can totally rock this interview now.
You got this. I have no doubt.
That's a wrap on our Textile Chemical Quality Technician interview prep. We hope you feel ready and empowered to go out there and ace that interview. Remember, confidence is key. Showcase your passion, highlight your skills, and don't be afraid to let your personality shine through. We're all cheering you on. Until next time, happy diving.